Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to our new series, translating the Quran from baqarah to naas. And for those who are just joining, this is part two. So please go back and watch part one, or you can start from here. But we're just going to read through the Quran from the front to the back, and I'm just going to give my translation and some brief comments of whatever comes to my mind. I'm not going to overly prepare. I just want it to be organic. And even you're going to probably come across, we're going to come across some times where I might have forgot the meaning of a word, or I might not know what it's talking about, and I might say, hey, let's stop and think about that. Let's look some stuff up. So I want to do it like that organically because I want to show you, like, no one knows everything, right? And I know I'm not saying that you ever thought I knew everything, but you know, sometimes when you're on social media and people start to kind of trust your take on things and your information and value you, they start to like kind of expect you to, you know, even if it's on a subconscious level, you know, like expect you to have all the answers. So I think it's good too to see even, you know, people that you might watch on social media and you might learn from, you know, they have to do the same thing everyone else does. And like, we know that consciously, right? But I think it's good to see it and inspiring to see it so that you know that you're not as far behind as you think, right? We're all just trying to struggle and learn. So, with that said, let's continue. I was translating, I had read the first three verses, so I was translating them. And I left off after verse 1, or verse 2, sorry, speaking about Hudan lil Muttaqin, that the book is a guidance for those who have taqwa. The next verse goes, Alladhina yu'minuna bil ghayb. Alladhina, those who. So, now it's going to start to tell us what are some of the qualities of those who have taqwa, because it's saying the book is a guidance for those who have taqwa. So now, what are the qualities of those who have taqwa? And in the previous video, I said taqwa is something like, at least in my opinion, kind of a protective state, a protective disciplined state, boundaries that we put around us in order to protect ourselves. Because the word taqwa, that's what it originally means in Arabic, is to protect. Now, what are the qualities of someone who has that? The next verse says, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, those who have iman in the ghaib. They usually translate this as those who believe in the unseen. But the reason I said those who have iman in the ghaib, because I want to draw your attention to just the words themselves, and not just like the kind of preconceived notions that we have about those words and the explanations that we've heard. So those who have iman in the ghaib. So first of all, what is iman? Iman is the root meaning of it in Arabic is trust. So it's a state of trust. A lot of times we translate it as faith or to believe, but it's really a state of trust. And I think living in trust is a completely different concept, or at least has a different feel to me than having faith, if that makes sense, right? That we live in a state of trust. And here, alladhina yu'minuna bil ghayb, those who have iman, those who have trust in the ghaib. So the ghaib, they translate as unseen. That's not a bad translation. Ghaib is ma huwa al-ghaib, basically, like what's absent, right? So what you can't see, what's unseen, that's not a bad translation in that case. The only thing that I would say about that, though, is when we talk about unseen, the way that that's often talked about, and we're often taught about that, is that it refers to the realm of like the angels, and you know, refers to Allah, you know, that type of stuff. And yeah, that could be part of what falls under that. But if we're thinking about the Quran on a practical level, having trust in what's unseen or what's beyond your perception, right? I could think about that in so many different ways. Like, for example, sometimes if I'm trying to improve at something, sometimes what I'm doing day to day to improve at that thing, it sometimes feels monotonous, it feels boring. And no one is celebrating or clapping for that part. No one sees that part, all the small things you have to do every day. But you have to trust in the future this is going to pay off and people are going to see it. Not that you're doing it for people, but I'm just using it as an example. You know, or you're going to see it yourself, or you're going to appreciate the results in the future. But that's ghaib, because the future is something we don't know. So, alladhina yu'minuna bil ghaib, the quality of those who have taqwa. Let's put the verses together. هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. It's a guidance for those who have taqwa, those who have trust in what they can't see. So having taqwa, again, like I was just saying, is to be in a state of protective discipline. But in order to do that, you have to have iman in the ghaib, because you have to trust that if you don't protect yourself from this thing, the consequences will be negative in the future, even though it might feel positive in the moment. Does that make sense? So الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, I think, is a very profound self-improvement tool here, right? That if you want to be in a state of protective discipline, you have to trust in the things that you can't see. You have to trust that what you're doing now is going to affect what you can't see. So that's beautiful, I think. So الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةِ, and they establish as-salah. As-salah is your connection with Allah. So while you are trusting in what you can't see, you are also in a state of salah and in connection with Allah. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةِ, and establishing it. The word establish is interesting in the Quran, because in Arabic it's yuqimuna here, right? Sometimes you see it like aqim as-salah, like as an order, establish the salah. But the word itself comes from the word qama in Arabic. Qama. Qama means to stand. That's what it means. So yuqimuna as-salah means they make the salah stand. So they make the salah stand. What does that mean? So if you compare this to another verse where Musa goes and meets his teacher, the verse in Surah Al-Kahf, and they go to the town and there's a wall that's about to fall. So the verse says, فَوَجَدَ جِدَارًا, so they found a wall, يُرِيدُ أَنْ يَنْقَضَّ فَأَقَامَهُ, that was on the verge of collapsing, فَأَقَامَهُ. So if they translate it, a lot of times you might hear him translate it as, so he fixed it or he repaired it. But it's interesting that the Quran doesn't say فَأَصْلَحَهُ, which would more closely fit the translation of he fixed it. It says فَأَقَامَهُ, which means he made it stand, because it's about to fall or collapse, so he made it stand. So, I mean, to fix, that's not wrong necessarily, because what did he have to do to make it stand? He probably had to fix it, right? He had to put some bricks in it or whatever. But I think the translation does kind of take away from showing us some depth of meaning in the word aqama and qama and qawama, the root word qaf waw mim. So if you think about that wall, he made the wall stand. That tells us that the word stand, when you make something stand, in other words, that could be a way of explaining fixing that thing and giving that thing all the elements it needs to carry out its duty, right? To fulfill its purpose. So, yuqimuna as-salah, if as-salah is your connection with Allah, then establishing it or making it stand is to correct it, to fix it, and to carry out in a way that it is able to accomplish its purpose. So maybe that's one way of thinking about it. And then he said, وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, and they spend from what we provide them is the normal translation. But if you read it in Arabic, it's وَمِمَّا, and from what رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, and from what we have provided them, they spend. So there's a couple interesting points I'll try to make real quick. When he says from what, min ma, it means part of. So they don't have to spend everything. And the fact that he put mimma razaqnahum first before yunfiqun is last, they spend. Perhaps one of the meanings we can derive from that, because usually when you put something ahead in the sentence in Arabic, it gives that thing more importance. So the emphasis here is on the fact that we provided it. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. And Allah knows best. See you in part 3. Salamun alaykum.